What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I'm going to continue to examine 100 years of the greatest 150 black fighters of all times. Let's take a look at Georgie Benton out of Philadelphia. He was born May 15, 1933, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, Georgie Benton was an outstanding middleweight, and he would begin his professional debut July 18, 1949, with a first-round knockout over Chico Wade. But Georgie Benton would lose to Al Mobley in Philadelphia. Lost to him in 6 rounds, June 5th, 1950. Now, I had a conversation with Georgie Benton. I asked him about some of the losses he had. And he said, what could I say? You just had, in his era, he's speaking of his time, you had a lot of tough fighters, especially coming out of Chicago, New York, and Philadelphia. He didn't make any excuses. The only problem he had, he was ranked number 3. And then number 1 for 3 years. Never got a title shot. I think what hurt his chances when he lost to Rubin Hurricane Carter. 10 rounds. Now, Rubin Hurricane Carter would do 1,000 sit-ups and 1,000 push-ups when he was incarcerated in Rollway State Prison daily. He was so strong that he would roll up his mattress, press it against the wall. He would pin his head up against the mattress, holding it in place with his head, and throw body punches and headshots with the mattress pinned against the wall from his head. That's how strong Rubin Hurricane Carter was. Rubin Hurricane Carter, and we'll be talking about him too because he will be added to this list. He used to take the back of his hand and he would pound the cement floor with the back of his hand open 200 times with each hand. But Georgie Benton would be in the ring with him, and he would hold his own against him. He would go 10 rounds against Rubin Hurricane Carter. Benton would take on Holy Mims, Philadelphia, defeat him in 8 rounds. He would take on Dave Peters, knocking him out in 5 rounds. And when I spoke to Georgie Benton, he would tell me about Ray Robinson's. But he would also tell me about local fighters, such as Billy P. Sweet Pea Peacock. He would tell me about Lynn Mathis, who was an outstanding lightweight. Unfortunate for Lynn Mathis, he would be hit with 72 unanswered punches with Carlos Ortiz when he brought his unbeaten winning streak into the ring with him. He'd be stopped in 6 rounds. He had Willie Reddish, fought in the 1930s, 40s, and the beginning of the 50s. And Georgie Benton was sparred with Joey Giardello and many others. He said those guys were tough, man. But Georgie Benton, as a kid, saw Jack Blackburn. And he saw Jack Johnson. And he told me that was an experience, man. But he was in the ring with Joe Blackwood. He would lose to Joe Blackwood. Joe Blackwood was a hell of a fighter. He was. Another fighter that's unmentioned in today's conversations. He'd be in the ring with Archie Whitefield in Chicago, knocking him out in 6 rounds. Charlie Joseph twice, August 26th and November 17th of 1958. He would win one and lose one in New Orleans. To Charlie Joseph. Be in the ring once again with Holy Mims and then Henry Hank, Bobby Boyd, and Freddie Little. Georgie Benton would be shot in the back. His sister had a boyfriend with a very mean temper. And he would mistake Georgie Benton and shoot him in the back. Georgie would also get shot in the foot. And he would retire from boxing, but he would become a coach for main events. And he would train Joe Frazier. 1976, when he would take on Big George Foreman in a rematch. He would train Rocky Lockridge and Johnny Bump City Bumpus. He would train Harold Warren to become the junior welterweight champion of the world. He would train Evander Real Deal Holyfield to become a unified, undisputed cruiserweight champion, heavyweight champion. He would train Meldrick TNT Taylor and Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker, Tyrell Biggs. Oh, what a trainer Georgie Benton was. But as a fighter, he held his own. So on behalf of Curtis Anderson and myself, we will place Georgie Benton on the list of 100 years, the greatest 150 black fighters of all times. Shout out to Georgie Benton. Rubin Hurricane Carter, middleweight that was born out of Paterson, New Jersey. Now, he was originally from Clifton, New Jersey. He was born May 6, 1937. But he would make Paterson, New Jersey his home. And that's where he would get into trouble. To the point, every move he made, it reminded me of the Sonny Liston story. He would be watched by the authorities. Now, Rubin Hurricane Carter would begin his professional debut September 22nd, 1961, with a 4-round victory over Pike Reed. He would have 4 fights that year, winning all of them with 2 knockouts. 1962, January 19th, to be exact, he'd be in the ring with Herschel Jacobs, Totowa, New Jersey. And he would lose to him in 6 rounds. And that would be a heartbreaking experience for Rubin Hurricane Carter, because Carter sometimes had a tendency to play around with some of these guys because he felt he would hurt them. Now, I was telling you about Rubin Hurricane Carter. His work ethics was very high. Like I said, he used to do 1,000 sit-ups and 1,000 push-ups daily while he was incarcerated. And he brought that work ethic all the way up to the professionals. And he would push tires all around the gym. He would try and push parked cars. See if he can move it an inch. That was part of his training regimen. But he was powerful. He was powerful. Georgie Benton told me about him. Now, I had the pleasure of meeting Rubin Hurricane Carter. I met him when he was being presented with the WBC belt from Jose Suleiman. I met him at the Boxing Hall of Fame. Very strong young man at that time. But Rubin Hurricane Carter would continue his career. 1962. He would take on Tommy Settles. Union City, he would knock him out in 1 round. The very next fight, Jimmy McMillan, he would knock him out in Union City in 1 round. Felix Santiago, he would knock out in 1 round in Union City. Johnny Tucker, April 16th, 1962. He would knock him out in 1 round. He would defeat Holy Mims in 10 rounds. He would knock out Emil Griffith in 1 round. He would knock out Florentino Fernandez in 1 round. What a powerful puncher Rubin Hurricane Carter was. I would have liked to have seen Rubin Hurricane Carter up against Bad Benny Briscoe. That would have been something to see. And if he came around a little later, perhaps we would have met Marvin Hagler. But Rubin Hurricane Carter was a pleasure to watch in the ring. And that classic fight with Georgie Benton can be viewed on YouTube. And you can see the skill set between both men. Reminds me of James Toney and Mike McCallum. Ezra Charles and Josie Joe Walcott. Rubin Hurricane Carter must be added to the list. 100 years of the greatest 150 black fighters of all time. Shout out to Rubin Hurricane Carter. R.I.P. to him. One last thing on Rubin Hurricane Carter. He fought Joey Giardello. And the movie Hurricane had viewed Joey Giardello as being bounced around the ring from Rubin Hurricane Carter. And the family would protest against that. And they would show the film and showed that that didn't happen. And they would be able to sue in behalf of Joey Giardello. Shout out to Joey Giardello. I met him. Well-respected human being he was. He used to hang out in GNS sporting clubs on Houston Street. And it was there Buddy McGirt, now Serto, had good relations. And I was friends with Teddy. And I had a pleasure of meeting Joey Giardello. So shout out to Joey Giardello. He was a hell of a fighter. So Rubin Hurricane Carter has been added to the list of 100 years of the greatest 150 black fighters of all time. Now, not all of the fighters that I show you will be added to the list of 100 years of the greatest 150 black fighters. But I do want to pay homage to some of them. This is Izzy Logard, Cuban fighter. Oh, he could fight. He was born April 11th, 1933. And he stood 5'7". He would fight out of New York. Began his boxing professional career November 12, 1949, against Ramon Verona. Knocked him out in 3 rounds. And he would face Baby Gavilan. He would have a 10-round draw with him. 10-round draw. And he would win the Cuban Lightweight Championship belt, October 5th, 1952. Isaac Logard was something else. So I just wanted to shout out Isaac Logard. Not added to the list, but has been recognized. Another fighter that I cannot add to the list of 100 years greatest 150 black fighters of all times would be Bunny Grant, but I wanted to recognize him as well. He was a Harry Wiley Sr. protege. And Bunny Grant would win the Jamaica welterweight title, 15 rounds, July 1st, 1961, when he would defeat Gerald Gray in Kingston, Jamaica. He was something else, man. He was something else. He would win that Jamaican welterweight title. But in 1960, he would win the Jamaican lightweight title, September 5th of that year, 1960. And he would defeat Kafir Edwards, 15 rounds. So I can't place him yet. In fact, I don't think I'm going to place them all because there's too many names that will fill up that slot. But Bunny Grant was a great candidate. And like I said, he was a protege of Harry Wiley Sr. Phenomenal fighter was Bunny Grant. His name was George Leslie Grant. He was born September 29th, 1940. Very good fighter. Now, one fighter I do want to add to the list of 100 years of 150 greatest fighters of all times was Zora Folley. Zora Folley was born May 27th, 1932 in Dallas, Texas. He stood 6 foot and 1 inch. From Arizona, where he would reside. And he would fight them all. Being there with Cassius Clay. And many big names coming up. And he just couldn't make the cut. But I decided to put him in. Because Zora Folley was a stand-up guy. He was a family man. And he had a beautiful boxing style. I remember seeing a film of him shadowboxing in the ring. He'd be stopped by Sonny Liston, July 18th, 1959. Stopped in 3 rounds in Denver, Colorado. He would defeat Eddie Machen, January 18th, 1959, San Francisco, California. He would defeat him in 12 rounds. He would take on Alex Mickliffe, January 29th, 1959, Denver, Colorado. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. He would take on Howard King, Sacramento, California. Defeat him in 10 rounds, August 4th, 1959. He would take on Alonzo Johnson, November 18th, 1959, Phoenix, Arizona. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. We take on Clarence Williams, April 5th, 1960. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. You see, Zora Folley, who, by the way, would take on Henry Cooper in London and knock him out in 2 rounds, December 5th of 1961. Very underrated. And I just felt he needed to be on this list. Now, he would defeat Doug Jones in 10 rounds, August 1st, 1962. Who would defeat him in Denver, Colorado. But then he'd be stopped by Doug Jones the same year, December 15th, 1962 in New York. He'd be stopped in 7th rounds. But Zora Folley had his shot with Muhammad Ali, and he was stopped. But by that time, Zora Folley, who was a family man to begin with, should have packed it in. But I like Zora Folley, and I wanted to put him on a list of 100 years, 150 greatest black fighters of all time. Shout out to Zora Folley. On behalf of my brother Curtis Anderson and myself, thanks for watching this segment of 100 years, the greatest 150 black fighters of all times.